What does cybersecurity look like when the battlefield stretches far beyond Earth's atmosphere? Well, today I'm helping celebrate the 5th anniversary of the Software-Defined Space Conference. And that's taking place here in Tallinn, Estonia. And this event brings together experts at the intersection of software, space and security. And today I want to explore how digital innovation is transforming our ability to protect and leverage space assets. Yep, I want you to think a little bit bigger than space tourism today. Because today I'm going to be joined by the CEO of the Estonian Defence and Aerospace Industry Association to talk about how Estonia, a nation of just 1.3 million people, has built a globally respected reputation in cyber defence and space innovation. And from the lessons they learned from the 2007 cyber attack to the country's growing ecosystem of aerospace and defence startups, I think it's fair to say that Estonia has become a fascinating case study in how a small but agile and adaptable nation can take the lead in the most advanced technological domains. So I invite you to join me today as I explore what makes Estonia's defence and aerospace industry so unique, and also how space and cyber technologies are increasingly intertwined, and how a new generation of engineers and entrepreneurs are already redefining what's possible for Europe's security and resilience. But enough scene setting from me. Let me beam your ears all the way to Estonia, where you can join me directly on the show floor here. So thank you for joining me on the Tech Talks Daily podcast here in Tallinn. But for everyone listening, can you tell everyone a little about who you are and what you do?
My name is Kalev Koidumäe and I am the CEO of Estonian Defence and Aerospace Industry Association.
And we're talking today as we celebrate the 5th anniversary of the Software-Defined Space Conference, or the SDSC series, which is dedicated to the critical realm of cybersecurity and software development in space, which is incredibly exciting. But how would you describe the event to international listeners?
I would say that's a good event that will explore more about the Estonian technologies, what our companies can provide for worldwide. If we were talking about the Estonian defence and aerospace industry, so the Estonia is relatively small country, 1.3 million population. So if you would like to be successful on international markets, we have to create something very unique. So in this regard, I would say that the uniqueness in Estonian defence and aerospace industry, it's one component, of course, the cyber. And when we talk about the cyber, we have certain references as well. In 2007 was first, I would say, the cyber attack in this scale from one state to other, and it's Russian cyber attack towards Estonian IT infrastructure, governmental one. That's mean that the Estonian infrastructure was designed right way. He didn't fall down. He got some damages. It's still operational. And I think this reference works even today very well. Just few weeks ago, I asked from one of our member companies, IT companies, is it true or is it just some gossip? Everyone talking about it, but they said no, that's actually works pretty well even today.
And as we talk about today and the state of cybersecurity today, especially in a period of enhanced global conflict, how do you describe the current state of Europe's defence and aerospace industry? And where do you see Estonia fitting within that shifting landscape? Because you're obviously you've got your troublesome neighbours, shall we say? But where do you see yourselves?
Let's maybe first explain about that our space activities, what our companies are doing in Estonia. Around 100 companies who was somehow linked with the space sector. It was also surprising for me. In our association, we have, let's say, 50 or 20 pretty active ones. Among these 100 companies, what was the statistics? 50 of them have contracts with other partners, organizations, and the main focus for the export markets as of course. because our own domestic markets in space field, it's pretty limited. But we have the historical roots, let's say Tartu University, Tartu Observatory. They have quite long, back in time, some experience with the space science. And that's, I would say, the basis for Estonian space companies, many ways. So what our companies are doing in the space, of course, all related with the software. The company is also building different camera solutions for satellites. The main market is then to Europe and US, and different type of the material developments, and of course all the satellite services. So the space sector, it's very important. And when we're talking about with the defense, the space is one of the domain out of 5 in NATO as well. That's the land, air, navy, cyber, and space. So the space technology is also organic part of the defense today. And as we see what's going on in Ukrainian battlefield, so at all the operational planning phases, you will need the information about the weather conditions, which is coming from where? From satellites. If you start to plan the operations, targeting, where is the opposing forces, where to send the rockets, you need that information is coming from the space. So the linkages, it's pretty big one if you compare with the space. And of course the cyber part of it, because in modern battlefield, the means and counter means competition, it's the constant fight. And let's say the cyber domain, or protect the systems, protect the weaponry, that's pretty valid part. When we talk about the cyber in Estonia, to that our references, our maybe knowledge about the cyber, I would say it's pretty high. And the basic education it's giving even the pupils in school about the cyber, we call it cyber hygiene. Do not push every link, and be aware of it. In the let's say in the businesses, the companies also put a lot of effort into the cybersecurity. And in governmental officials, as myself, I'm reserve officer. I did 31 years service in Estonian Army. Basically, every year we had the cyber tests. So you have to be aware, and of course, all the threats, they are also changing in the time. Yeah. So, and that's maybe a bit explaining about the background, where we are in the cyber, let's say, domain in Estonia as a society, and what our space companies are doing in space market, and how they link with the defense today.
And I'm so glad you've raised this, because there will be people listening all around the world, and when they hear about space, they think moon landings, space tourism, but we take so much for granted of the role of those satellites in space, don't we? Whether it be in conflict or even in our everyday life.
How you came here, you use navigation, for example. So, and it's, of course, all the space technologies has become more affordable. It's not only the monopoly of the governments anymore. SpaceX and other companies, they're much more affordable for the companies. And I think in this regard, more and more businesses also can see it's affordable. It's not, let's say, unreachable area, what was before very limited access for the private companies, only those who've been contracted with the governments. So, and in this regard, I see that all these technologies will rapidly developed, because it also technological, how to say, development spin moving faster and faster. Compare with your parents, for example, when they went to labor market, basically they use the same skills and tools to the retirement. Yeah. But in our generation, you start with the typewriter, and now you have all the world in your pocket as with the mobile phone, and we can't even imagine how our kids will what they are digital generation. We came from the analog generation. Yeah. So, and they maybe will have to move to the quantum generations, would say.
Wow. There is an exciting future right there.
But it's the same going on in the battlefield. That if you look the Ukrainian battlefield, one hand you have, in one arc you have the First World War artillery duel. Other hand you will lead this or do the fire control with AI, using AI. And in the middle you have a lot of unmanned systems and all the new technology. And during the last 4 years we see through our company experience in Ukraine how fast the technological spin has been developed and going further and further.
And you have a unique perspective here as both a reserve colonel and now an industry leader. So how do you see that relationship between national defence priorities and technological innovation? How do you see the two of them colliding and evolving together?
It's pretty normal in Estonia, I would say, because we have a reserve army and many, let's say, business owners, engineers, scientists, governmental officials are somehow linked with this. They've been part of the reserve wars, or they're members of Volunteer Defense League, for example. So and that's somehow how the society also aware about the situation, and at the same time it can reduce, let's say, the scare also what's going on, because we know what we do. And in this regard I would say that reserve military personnel, they also can bring the knowledge from defense forces to the industry, because government has been invested so much to them anyway. And of course they absorb during the 30 years all the resources from him, but there's still left of the resources and knowledge of those people. And we have also quite a nice number of reserve officers, generals who right now pretty active on the defense industry.
And of course, the war in Ukraine has changed how many countries think about the readiness and innovation and indeed technology. So what lessons from that conflict are shaping your approach in Estonia to defence and industrial strategy too?
When we're looking about the all political security, political situation in the eastern flank of the Europe, we have our neighbors, Russia, have been hundreds of years, but of course we know from our past you have to be ready for the worst case of scenario, and to be ready you have to prepare yourself, and if you're prepared then you know how to act and how to face it. And that's what our military, our government, our society doing on daily basis. So we have a reserve army. We can't afford for us fully professional, but we have the wartime structure, 50,000 people who've been trained and equipped, and the constant training going on, people who are in reserve. Also society, local communities, they have some risk plans. It's not only that, okay, we are doing it right now, do that, but of course it push somehow to do certain project faster what was it planned before. When we talk about state defense side, that the Estonian defense budget will be increased next year up to 5.4% of the GDP, which is a huge of, let's say, effort from the governmental side. And there will be also quite a number of defense investments. And of course, the Estonian defense and space industry will be also part of the investments, because what's possible to make in Estonia, that we will provide for our armed forces, is some systems, products or services. And of course the localization, there will be also definitely weapon systems what we are not making in Estonia, what government will buy, but due to the localization we see also possibility to be part of supply chain of the bigger primes, and also through that we will have some technological transfer to Estonia, so it win-win for both sides.
And of course, smaller nations often face the challenge of maintaining sovereignty while participating in wider European and NATO collaboration. So how do you navigate a balance like that in Estonia?
Yeah, we are the member of the NATO, and but you can't rely only your partners. Yeah. You have to be ready to take the first fight by yourself. So when you can take care for yourself, then your partners will much more keenly to help you.
And I'm curious, from what you're seeing, what kinds of technological breakthroughs or innovations are currently being developed in Estonia's defence and aerospace sector that you think could have a lasting global impact? Anything in particular excite you there?
I wouldn't say it the global impact, but when the Estonian companies would like to be successful on international markets, and it's very tough competition on the export markets. What we see now in Europe, we see the market fragmentation. And from other hand as well, the market protectionism are increasing. So of course, all countries who will, let's say, increase the defense budget, they aim as well to leave as much as possible taxpayers' money in their own economy. And to be successful in this tough competition, you have to provide something very unique. And I usually bring the example that, okay, the big primes, they provide the big stones, but between the big stones you have a place for small stones. And we try to fulfill this. And not maybe the full set of systems, but let's say subsystems related with the cyber solutions, IT solution, but also different sensor technologies. The Estonian companies providing to market right now on all three domains unmanned platforms, and many of them operating in Ukraine, for example. Different sensor solutions or situational awareness solutions, which also operating in Ukraine, and we got the references back, and developing constantly those solutions. We also making our defense industry ecosystem now developing, I would say. They consist of the legal frame. We also adapting our laws and regulations in Estonia that our companies can apply much easily the different licenses to provide munition or weapon systems, provide for our own armed forces, but also focus to export markets. It's the same with the conditions, the governmental decision to establish a defense industrial park that will also provide the location for the companies safely produce munition and explosive materials, for example. And of course, export support. And all these combinations we are creating the condition has been built already, and then improving that in daily basis to get better opportunity for our companies to reach export markets with the systems what can they offering, and also different optical solutions and observation devices.
And also in the era of supply chain uncertainty, how are Estonian companies continuing to stay resilient and competitive while integrating into larger defence ecosystems right across Europe? Anything you can share around that?
Yeah, I would say that's a very vital problem about the supply chain. And for example, during the COVID was worst impact when the supply chains been cut off many ways. Today, the other challenge, the many end users would like to have the systems without the Chinese components. You have to find the new sub-suppliers and supply chain. And of course, to build strong and resilient supply chain, you have to pay attention about all this information security, that nobody can cut off something.
Yeah. And from your experience, both in command and now in industry, what gaps do you still see in Europe's defence innovation pipeline, whether it's policy, mindset, funding, over-regulation? Where are the biggest gaps, do you think?
When we're talking about the defense industry part, it's our main goal is to create affiliate conditions for our companies to reach to export markets. And in this regard, yes, we would like to see maybe the biggest steps from our own armed forces side to have the local contracts, bigger scale, because domestic reference is very important for us. We see also progress in this regard. We have a lot of solutions and initiatives. Maybe in sometimes the industry would like to see the governmental steps much faster, but of course understandable from the governmental side. When you're using the public money, it have to be very transparent. All these procurement regulations taking time. So, and we used to have in Estonia, all the processes are happening very fast. Therefore, it's all this government state procurements seems to us that that's happening in ages. So that's maybe I would say the challenge right now what we are working with. And of course, regulations from the other markets as well, the access to the other markets. But in this regard, yeah, we in this year already conducted 14 different events to the export markets, different countries. We've been hosting the different partner countries' defense industry delegations in Estonia. So when you're a small country, very specific sector, you have to do it a lot of, let's say, this kind of activities. I would say the marketing to create the bigger visibility of this sector and of your company.
And you mentioned earlier in our conversation the journey we've both been on with our parents and the analog generation, digital, maybe quantum in the future. If you were to look further ahead, how do you see emerging technologies like AI, autonomy, space systems, maybe quantum? How do you see all these things reshaping Estonia's future defence and aerospace space competitiveness?
Yeah, definitely. And when you're a small society, in some ways we are like guinea pigs as well. That if you look at all the digital solutions, what we used to have in Estonia, e-elections, and you can do basically most of your services over the internet, for example. You don't need to go any offices. So we use that. That's the reason as well that the number of the people, how many we have the people in Estonia, therefore all this kind of governmental, let's say, services, the logic was that we will use as much as possible self-service solutions that will reduce the number of governmental authorities, institutions, and that's also, let's say, you can cut off how it called, some kind of illegal activities. It's pretty transparent ways. So corruption, you can reduce easily. And I will see we will move further in to building different layer, maybe services for the future society as well. And the companies who are operating in this environment with their own services, with all the innovative solutions, then that will also inspire for the younger generation, new generation, to develop this kind of solutions. And therefore it's quite complicated to say today that when we could be with our technologies after 20 years, even hard to say where it's after 10 years, because the technological spin moving faster and faster. Definitely there will be a lot of automatization when we talk about the industry, digitalization. So maybe you will not need to have large-scale factories. You can somehow do it in the different parts, in different parts, different production, just assembly in one place. So I would say it from industry point of view. Unmanned systems on the military-wise, that's definitely will be the game on the battlefield, and they will stay and they will develop. And all for that you will need the space, all the space technologies more and more, because and then cyber to protect your supply lines, so your communication, and that's also, let's say, threat that someone could be manipulated as the systems. And of course, everything starts with knowledge and train the population and inform it what could be with the new technologies, also the threats.
I think that is a powerful moment to end on. I love the point you made about bringing the next generation along for this as well. And for anyone listening, maybe they want to dig a little bit deeper, explore anything we talked about. Is there anywhere in particular you'd like to point everyone listening?
Yeah, you can find about information about the Estonian Defence and Aerospace Industry Association. It's www.defence.ee
and
website.
And I would urge everyone listening to check that out. I think for too long we've kind of dumbed down space and talked about space tourism and things like that. But thank you so much for shining a light on this. Really appreciate your time.
Thank you.
And as my conversation here in Tallinn, Estonia draws to a close, I find myself struck by how Estonia's story illustrates the future of defence and innovation. Because my guest painted a vivid picture today of how software-defined space, cyber resilience and industrial agility can all coexist. And I'm seeing first-hand evidence of that here in this small but incredibly forward-thinking nation. And whether through its digital governance, reserve army model or collaboration with NATO allies, Estonia is continuing to show that scale is less important than strategy. That's refreshing to hear. And the challenges facing Europe's defence and aerospace sector, they are incredibly complex, far too complex to cover in a 30-minute podcast. But so are the opportunities, from AI-driven operations to the integration of cyber protection across every domain. My guest reflection today reminded me of the next frontier of security and how it will depend as much on digital literacy and collaboration as it will on hardware and funding. So as we wrap up this special edition of the Tech Talks Daily podcast from the Software Defined Space Conference in Tallinn, Estonia, I'd love to hear your thoughts. Maybe you're listening in a small nation just like Estonia, and maybe you're helping set a new standard for innovation too. Whether it be in defence, space, or anywhere, let me know what you're thinking after listening. I'd love to hear from you. TechTalksNetwork.com is our website. You can also connect with me on LinkedIn, X, Instagram, just at Neil C. Hughes. Let me know. But that's it for today. I'm going to try and grab another guest here on the show floor to have a little chat with, and I'll meet you here, same time, same place tomorrow. Bye for now.